So, Richard Smith, welcome in Jazz Meeting.
Thank
Again.
you. Yeah, again.
Well, we the first was in Enschede.
Yes.
And
many years ago.
Many years ago.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw you, it was in the Cactus in Hengelo.
The
Of all
Cactus
places, it was in Hengelo.
That's right. That was with Roger Byrne.
Yeah.
That was. What year was that? Do you remember?
Mm-hmm. It was in 10 years ago.
This was.
It was a very hot day.
It was a hot day. Yeah.
In July.
I took that tour because I thought it would be really a smart idea to go to Northern Europe in the middle of summer, because in Los Angeles it's also very hot.
Yeah.
But I decided to join Roger's tour because he needed a guitar player, and I thought, well, great, Northern Europe, it's going to be nice and cool.
Yeah.
And it was the hottest summer on record.
Yes.
It was the hottest it had ever been, and they were still smoking in clubs.
Yeah.
And there was no air conditioning, and they kept the windows shut, painted shut. So it was quite a challenging tour, actually.
And was it the first time you came to Europe?
No, I've actually been coming to Europe since I was about 16 years old. But it was the first time I'd been in Holland, and that intrigued me, and I did want to do it because I wanted to discover Holland. Yeah.
So how was it to be in Holland, in that small town, and yes, what was the experience?
Well,
because I saw you there standing playing the guitar,
Yeah.
and I loved the guitar very much. And you were playing that song you did at lunch at Pizza.
At Pizza Express, yeah.
Yes. Beyond
the Mountains,
yes.
yeah. Wow, I've been playing it that long.
Yes,
Gosh.
you played that, and
That was the one song
and
I played.
I thought you were very shy, very modest at that time.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I'm still shy and I'm still modest.
No. So after that, you were touring with Roger, and
Yeah.
you were traveling a lot to Holland.
Yeah, well, actually, the person who put the tour together, helped put the tour together, Sitsa, and I became good friends on that tour.
Yeah.
And I, after that tour, I sent him some of my CDs. He said, "Well, you've got to come over here and tour." I thought that's quite a good idea. And then what really made it possible was that his wife Elska at the time was his girlfriend, I think, and her parents had a hokja, had a guest house. It was a really nice guest house. I thought, well, this is really nice. So, and at the time it was really a busy time in LA and things like that. But it just sort of was a vacation that ended up being a 6-week vacation because Sitsa kept booking more gigs, and it was a lovely time. Yeah, incredible time in Holland. We went all over the place, and we drove from Friesland, which is in the north. We drove to all these concerts all over Holland, and then we would drive home, and I would say, Sitsa, why don't we get a hotel or something like that? And he said, I don't want to wake up away from my wife. and I thought that was very romantic, and so we would drive after these concerts. We'd drive as many as 3 hours to get back home. Yeah, good memories.
Yes, good memories. So you went several times to Holland. You
every year for a while.
Loved the people.
Yeah.
And now we are in London.
Yeah.
So you went to London. You went to Norway. You went to Greece, to Italy. So. How was Italy this year?
Italy was fantastic. We actually just released our second CD, which I pulled out of the rack for you, and it's called "The Heart of the Immigrants." And what's fascinating about that is that Francesco Buzzurro is Sicilian. I'm Sicilian.
Yeah.
So when he wanted to make this record because of all these terrible things that are going on in the world with immigration and all of this, we thought it was a very timely subject. But also, as we talked about it, it turns out that we both have been very affected by immigration in our lives. Me being an Italian immigrant to the United States, and him losing a lot of family to the United States.
Yeah.
So he was saying this record should be called Heart of the Emigrants, and we went into production, and I had automatically processed it as being Heart of the Immigrants. So it's very different. An immigrant is somebody who leaves, and an immigrant is somebody who comes.
Yeah.
And in my experience with immigration is that they came to America. His was that they left.
Yeah.
So that says a lot about that record. I think just that small
When did you
distinction.
start it? Because this is a mission, you know.
It is. Well, it's a sentiment. It's a sentiment that is actually a correlative between our music, in that I come from a modern, sort of real-time sort of situation, being a guitar player in L.A., and he plays ancient song forms, and he's from an ancient culture in Italy. But we come together, and there's a confluence there. Actually, our differences are strengths.
Yeah.
At one time that we were neighbors, but now that we're very global. Yeah. But it is a mission in the other respect, in that that we all are immigrants. I mean, we think of immigration as being this fairly recent thing, but Europeans have been immigrating for thousands of years. I mean, the Vikings and the Frederick II, but also the Carthaginians invaded Sicily, and the Hebrews and the Greeks at 2,400 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a fairly ancient thing.
Yes, it's not new. It's been for
The Indonesians.
ancients. Yes, of course the Indonesians. I also wrote a song for the immigrants.
Okay.
For the refugees. But I did it before it started.
Before the main pulse
yes,
started.
I didn't know, but it's in Dutch.
Right.
And I hope to contribute also.
Yeah. Speaking from experience, my experience is a bit more distant, but yours isn't.
Yes, but well, maybe it's becoming now a whole story. I know it's from stories and but now feeling it's landed now. What it really means.
Yeah.
What it really means, and
one of the pieces on the CD is a melody that my grandmother used to whistle in the kitchen, and I didn't know where that melody came from, but I knew it was something ancient and something Italian, and then I reharmonized it, and it was just something that she sang, and it's a very powerful piece of music.
Yeah.
So there's a DNA that goes through all of this, and music is this incredible trigger. And you went to the British Museum yesterday, which is down the street, and you see, the Egyptians and the Greeks had this incredible architecture and great culture, and even the uniforms that you see, incredible stylization. Well, probably the music was just as complex and interesting and stylized. It's just that they didn't have any recording equipment. So if you can imagine, we can only imagine what it looked like, because they didn't write it down. But it could have been just as complex and just as forward thinking, and it probably, no doubt, it was, as the engineering that went into building the many temples and so forth that still exist and still are standing, and the aqueducts and things like that. So that's an interesting component of music, that it is actually a science, and that it could have had an incredible. I'm just imagining what it might have sounded like in those days.
So can you show us your new CD?
Sure. I mean, just well, here it is. It's just. Actually, it's been a while. I've had several CDs. This is The Heart of the Immigrants right there.
Well, whose idea was it? Both of you at the same time?
Francesco, it was just one of those mornings on the tour, and we're playing a concert in America. Actually, it was only a year ago. No, only about 6 months ago, and he said, I have an idea. The new CD will be called Heart of the Immigrants. And Francesco does this. He just sort of, this is the way it's going to be. And I think, wow, that's a good idea. And so, yeah, it was his idea.
So, and how is it in Italy? They listen to the music. And
we sold out. We did a tour, and we pretty much sold out of them. Yeah, the people, it's very, very popular CD. It's our second CD. Did I ever give you one of our first CDs?
Yes, I do have it.
Yeah. So this is much more evolved. We've been playing together now for 7 or 8 years, and much more evolved. Very, very proud of this one, particularly because of the sentiment and so forth. I mean, look at Sicily. It's in the middle of all that. It's the center. It's the most conquered city, the most conquered island in on the planet, and so they certainly know about immigration.
And how is it to go back almost every year to Sicily, to Italy?
It's part of my DNA, and it's part of my culture, and now it's I can speak a bit of Italian, so for me it's a very important part of my musical life.
Yeah. So it's because of the music, or you have been raised with that part of Italy. Because
go ahead.
yeah, because there are a lot of Americans. When I ask them,
Yeah.
where do you come from? Because
Yeah.
I'm really interested where they come from which part of Europe.
Yeah.
And they cannot answer me. So that's why my question is, are you raised with that big part of your background for the ancestors, where they come from? And that's a piece of culture what is very important.
Well, I think it's really interesting being in England because we have two specifically different ideas about immigration.
Yeah.
And whereas America, my grandmother, who's Italian, was expected to acclimate very quickly within a generation, or within her lifetime, to being American. And at that time, it was World War II, and slightly before that, and we were at war with Italy. So it wasn't really popular to be Italian in America. So her culture was truncated and suppressed.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what Americans want to do: is you become a melting pot, and you become this sort of thing. You become American, whatever the hell that is.
Yeah.
And but it's definitely not Italian, and it's definitely not anything in specific. You might be an Irish American, Italian American, but generally you're American, and you all like pretty much the same food and so forth. Well, England, if you come to England, and England was empire, it was part of so many different countries.
Yeah.
If you came here, they celebrated where you came from, and they said you can exist in England, but you can still be Indian, or you can still be any one of the number of countries that they'd conquered. So that's a very big distinction. If you go into the neighborhoods here, they're very diverse, and you hear all these languages, and you see all this food. So it's not all sort of trying to melt into one pot.
Yeah.
So that's an important distinction
Yeah.
when you look at that sort of thing. So getting back to the original question, which is was it a big part of me was being Italian? No, it wasn't, and that was part of my journey. It was to go back and rediscover some of that. Fortunately, I really believe in DNA. I really believe that you're hardwired from your ancestors. So the same thing didn't really happen when I went to Wales, and I'm part Welsh, but it definitely happened very strong when I went to Italy, and I feel that I'm much more closer to Italy in my disposition as a composer and guitarist. Than Wells. So it's a long, convoluted answer to your question, but it's an important one.
It's very important, and I think I think that this CD, The Heart of the Immigrants, for this time, maybe you can tell it in your words, because
what's that?
Tell the people more about it, because you
Sure.
both wrote the numbers.
Yeah, we wrote just about everything on it. We have a couple of things, like for instance, when you decide you're making a record, and you decide, okay, it's going to be Heart of the Immigrant, and all the songs have to sort of find their way back to that theme. For instance, we do Amazing Grace, and Amazing Grace was written by John Newton, who had 200 slaves in the 1840s, and he had a religious epiphany, and he set all the slaves free, and wrote Amazing Grace. In those days, a gentleman knew how to compose songs and so forth. Well, I mean, that's another type of immigrant, a forced immigrant, and there's a lot of slavery, and there's a lot of forced immigration these days, and so we wanted to include that, because actually in that song you can hear this release of guilt and release of injustice that he discovered in that epiphany. And I really believe that a great song comes from a particularly special place of experience, and that certainly seems to have happened then. So it's a tremendous opportunity to write, to work on a pretty
so
deep
people
record.
have to buy it, because it's telling a history, and also the recognition for people, because I think it's almost denied for years, and then something happens, and people don't know why, because there's a lot of anxiety about it, and if they know the whole story, there is less anxiety,
Yes.
I think.
Huh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think this is a great interview because I didn't know the title.
Okay. Yeah, we just released it this last tour.
And you told me that you don't have a mission, but it's a real great mission for this time and for, well, it's a thing that never ends, I think. If there is not, when there are not people who are bringing this, like you both did.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, I think that it was very meaningful for us, and it's something that we talk about a lot. Is our relative experiences. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.
Very, yes, I'm really touched.
Oh, great.
Thank you.